Good afternoon. This is Miss Fincher from East Hills Middle School, where I'm the principal, and I'm here to share with you, along with Wilbur and Charlotte, Chapter 17 of Charlotte's Web, entitled Uncle. When they pulled into the fairgrounds, as you can see, they could hear the music and see the Ferris wheel turning in the sky. They could smell the dust from that old racetrack. And they could see where the sprinkling cart had gone by to moisten it. They could smell hamburgers frying and see balloons aloft. They could hear sheep in their pens, an enormous voice over the loudspeaker that said, "Attention please, attention please. Will the owner of a Pontiac car, license number H as in hat, 2439, please move your car away from the fireworks shed." Oh my gosh, that could start a fire. Can I have some money? Can I have some too? Can I go buy a dolly and a spinning wheel? Can I run and play the games? Kids, one at a time, just like in the classroom, one at a time. Can I have a balloon, asked Fern? Can I have a frozen custard and a cheeseburger? And raspberry soda pop, said Avery. Oh, you children, please be quiet while we get the pig. Wilbur, they're talking about you. Unload it. Let's just get the children off to themselves, suggested Mr. Arable. And the fair only comes once a year, and look at it. Just look at it. So they gave Fern 2 quarters and 2 dimes. He gave Avery 5 dimes and 4 nickels. I wonder if that is equal. Do you think? That's a question. And remember, the money has to last all day long, all day long. Don't spend it all the first few minutes that you're there. And he backed out of the track and went on along his way. And remember, we must have lunch together, and don't eat a lot of stuff that's going to make you sick at your stomachs. And if you go to those swings, please, kids, please be careful. Those swings, hang on tight. Hang on very tight. Now, you hear me? And don't get dirty. Oh, yeah, really. Wilbur, would that be any fun at all to go to the fair and not get dirty? Don't get overheated. So many rules, so many rules. And don't cross the racetrack where the horses are coming. The children grabbed each other by the hand and danced off in the direction of the merry-go-round toward the wonderful music and the wonderful adventure and excitement into the wonderful midway where they would have no parents to guard them or to guide them, and where they could be happy and free to do as they pleased. Miss Arable stood quietly, and as soon as the people were gone, she began to look around and wonder what might happen. Then she sighed as she blew her nose. Do you really think it's going to be all right? Well, they have to grow up sometime, said Mr. Arable, and the fair is such a good place to start. Just look at all the fun. Look at all the fun. While Wilbur was being unloaded and taken out of his crate into his new pig pen, crowds gathered to watch, and they noticed the sign, "Zuckerman's Famous Pig," in all caps. Wilbur stared back and tried to look extra good. He was placed in his new home, and the pen was grassy, and it was shaded in the sun by a shedded roof. Charlotte, watching and waiting for her chance to scramble out of the crate and climb on the post under the side of the roof. Nobody even noticed her. Templeton, not wishing to be out in the broad daylight, stayed quietly under the straw at the bottom of the crate. Mr. Zuckerman poured some milk into Wilbur's trough, pitched clean straw into his pen, and then he and Mr. Zuckerman and the Arables walked away toward the cattle barn to look at all the purebred cows and to see the sights. Mr. Zuckerman particularly wanted to see the tractors. He wanted to see a deep freeze. They wandered off and hoped to meet friends and have some fun on the midway. As soon as all the people were gone, Charlotte spoke to Wilbur. "Charlotte, what are you going to say to Wilbur?" "It's a good thing you can't see what I see," she said. "What do you see?" asked Wilbur. There's a pig in the next pen, and he is enormous. I'm afraid he's so much bigger than you, Wilbur. Maybe he's older than I am, and he has more time to grow, suggested Wilbur. But tears began to come in his eyes. I'll drop down and give you a closer look, said Charlotte. Then she crawled along a beam till she was directly over the next pen. She let herself down a drag line until she hung in the air just in front of the pig's snout. May I have your name? She said politely. The pig just stared at her. I'm sure he was thinking, what a nuisance. No name, he said in a big, hearty voice. Just call me Uncle. Very well, Uncle, replied Charlotte. What is the date of your birth? Are you a spring pig? Well, sure I'm a spring pig, Uncle said. What do you think, I'm a spring chicken? Ha 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 ha. Well, that's a good one, old sister. Mildly funny, said Charlotte. I've heard funnier ones, though. Glad to have met you. Now I must be going. She ascended slowly and returned to Wilbur's pen. He claims he's a spring pig, Wilbur, and perhaps he is. One thing is certain, though. He's the most unattractive personality. He's too familiar, too noisy, and he cracks very weak jokes, Wilbur. What do you think? He's not anywhere near as clean as you are either, Wilbur, or near as pleasant. I took quite a dislike to him just in our brief interview. He's going to be a hard pig to beat, though, old Wilbur. Just think about that. Wilbur, on account of his size and his weight, we may have issues. But with me helping you, I think we can get it done, Wilbur. When are you going to spin a web? Asked Wilbur. This afternoon late, if I'm not too tired. Charlotte, the last thing these days is tired. I don't seem to have enough energy I once had, she said. My age, I guess. Wouldn't know. Wilbur looked at his friend. She looked rather swollen, and she seemed listless. I'm awfully sorry to hear that you're feeling poorly, Charlotte, he said. Perhaps if you spin a web and catch a couple of flies, you'll feel much better. Well, perhaps, she said, but I feel like the end of a long day, clinging upside down on the ceiling. She settled for a nap, leaving Wilbur very much worried. Oh, Wilbur. All morning, people wandered past Wilbur's pen. Dozens and dozens and dozens of strangers stopped to stare at him, some to admire him, his silky white coat, his curly tail, his kind and radiant expression. Then they would move on to the next pen where there was a big, big pig. Wilbur heard several people make favorable remarks about Uncle's great size. Sorry, Wilbur. He couldn't help overhearing these remarks, and he just couldn't help worrying. Worry. And now, with Charlotte not feeling well, he thought, oh dear, what do I do? All morning, Templeton slept quietly under the straw. The day grew fiercely hot. At noon, Zuckerman's and the Arables returned to the pig pen. By this time, I bet it was, stinky. Then a few minutes later, Fern and Avery showed up. Fern had a monkey doll in her arms and was eating Cracker Jacks. Avery had a balloon tied to his ear, and he was chewing on a candied apple, my favorite. The children were hot and dirty. Isn't it hot, said Miss Zuckerman. Whew, it is terribly hot, said Miss Arable, fanning herself with an advertisement of a deep freeze. One by one, they climbed into the old truck, opened their lunch boxes, and the sun, it was beating down on everything. Nobody seemed hungry at all. Where are the judges going? When are they going to decide about Wilbur? Poor Wilbur. Not until tomorrow, Mr. Zuckerman. An Indian blanket appeared. Who had won the Indian blanket? Does anyone know who won the Indian blanket? That is just what we needed, a blanket. A blanket, said Avery. What is happening in the truck? It's very, very hot, and everyone is dirty. Of course it is. It is an Indian blanket. Soon the blanket was spread across the sideboards of the truck. What do you think they used it for? They used it for a makeshift tent. The children sat in the shade under the blanket and felt much better. After lunch, they all stretched out, and fell asleep.